Hi, and welcome to this new episode of Simplifying Services, which is all about AI. And today I have with me Eric Gitter. Eric, thank you for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. My name's Eric. I've been with Ingram for about 7.5 years, which in Ingram terms really is nothing because most people spend their lifetime here. I have 3 responsibilities currently, which is 1, our external AI strategy, so really helping partners with AI. 2, my team manages some of our global vendor relationships, like with NVIDIA, with Google, and a few other strategic ones. And last but not least, some of our customer success motions at a global level. I'm based in Munich, Germany, so always great to be here in the neighborhood, let's say. But I usually travel most of the year.
It's fantastic to have you here. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Before we dive in, if you could describe AI in just one word, what would that be?
I think for me, that's superpowers.
It clearly is your superpower.
I appreciate that.
So tell us a bit about your journey so far, your career.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, I started out kind of in the media industry, in marketing, of all things. I like the creativity aspect of it. That was for a sports TV station of all things back in Germany. And then kind of family and friends were pressing me to get into sales, which back then I kind of didn't regard as something I wanted to do. I thought it was too simple, being young and arrogant as one is. But then I very quickly got into sales and figured out that it can be a lot of fun, can be very complex. So I spent probably, I'm going to say, around 10 years or so in different sales roles, being in sales, building sales teams, SDR teams, enterprise teams, and really always selling technology. B2B, usually platforms or bigger kind of more complex solutions. And I like that. It was always about the customers using it to kind of transform their business, not do the same thing just in a better way, but do entirely new things. And what I liked most about that was always that it was kind of every couple of months I got the opportunity. Thankfully, I had a lot of really phenomenal leaders that kind of sent me off to figure out the new industry, figure out the new thing, figure out the new geography. So I was able to do that for, let's say about 10 years. Before Ingram, I joined a startup out of the US, which was like, I always say, it was like 29 people in San Francisco, me in Munich. I had EMEA and Latin America. My mom's Brazilian, so I got that side covered, fortunately. I did that for a couple of years, it was like fast tracking. You got like 5.5 years or so where you go from 30 to significantly north of 1,000 people, and you go through every possible phase of company growth, but like you get whiplash. Every 3 months you have to adjust the process, create an entirely new one, hire new people, build new teams. That taught me a lot, also industry-wise. And then I got to join Ingram in 2018, I want to say, something like that. And I've done kind of 3 things here. I was in strategic business development, so I'm back on the platform side, looking at government clients and new industries. Then Victor Baez asked me at some point to work on building our global customer success organization, which I've done for a couple of years. And then since then, in the last sort of 2 years, what I mentioned earlier. So really AI and global partnerships.
Everybody's talking about AI, but why should partners care?
Yeah, I would say it's the most important technology shift that we've certainly seen and likely are to see in our lifetime. One can't predict the future, but it seems like it. After all, we are in technology. Our partners are, we are in technology. It's so unique because it's for the first time a technology that touches everyone, but it's also known by everyone. It's used, it's consumed, it's demanded. So if you compare this to, let's call it the last hype, I would actually say, which was IoT, that was a hype to a very limited group of people. It was people working with it, people in supply chain. It was big in the consumer space, but consumers didn't know about it, right? Like it's not a thing you looked for in a store in any way, or even were talking about it, at the dinner table. That's extremely different with AI. Everyone is using, especially generative AI, tools for creative tasks, for productivity, and so forth. So what that means is that it's the biggest shift that's been happening. I'm not saying anything that's new there. It means every single one of our customers is thinking about it, needing it, implementing it already for a range of different purposes, but I know we'll get into those later. And if you're in technology today, which all of our partners are, this is the place that you have to really understand, because that is where you can have the biggest impact on your customers. And I would say the general guidance, unless you're brand new partner, I would say, like brand new in the business, is that you use your existing strengths, your existing focus, and basically apply that to what's needed and what could be needed over time in AI. It is the thing that matters. And to just throw out one stat that I think is quite well known in the industry, but about 3/4 of all knowledge workers already use it on the daily. Most of that's not sanctioned by their employers. But then that's obvious. If 75% of your end customers, employees, if you will, use it on the daily, and you are literally in that business, it is probably the most important thing that you should be focusing on.
So what does the future look like then?
I think one way to say it is that it will become less of what I described as superpower at the start, because it's woven into everything. It already is becoming part of everyday life. I mean, if you look back before that generative AI hype, we have, I don't know how many billion people on social media. And then if you add up Google and Amazon to it, not social media, then you pretty much got most of the world's population, and they were exposed willingly or unwillingly to AI already, right? Like all the algorithms that were serving you up recommendations or finding, if you look at Instagram, which probably, in my view, is one of the best examples, people actually all of a sudden liked an ad experience because it was relevant, was something fresh, something new. It didn't feel like, hey, I want to buy a car and you're proposing a bicycle. Or even something further off. So what the future looks like is that AI is woven into everything for us consumers, but also into every part of work. So if you're looking at a company, a typical company, let's say more knowledge workspace, then you're going to have every single employee is going to be aided by a range of, whether you call it agents today or there will be new terminology in the future, basically these assistants, could say an army of assistants that's going to help you, like with superpowers, do more things, do the things in a better way, do them faster. What that will also mean is that you have to you have to develop this fluency for it. And there is a school of thought, things are changing very quickly, that I also would subscribe to. That is one of the most critical things to become as a knowledge worker is an AI generalist. So the same way you could think today of a great manager, ideally not as a manager, but as a leader, you become that orchestrator of a range of different, you could say, tools, smart or not, that's more of a philosophical question, but really powerful things that you can use to do your job in a completely different and new way. So this is going to become the natural norm, and very, very quickly. And as many times with those tech shifts, we're probably first going to see it in startups because they don't have the legacy to get rid of or transform, right? So startup, if I start today, then I'm going to, and in fact, I have this in my extended family, someone who's started something and they're kind of 1-2 people and they're already doing the work, or 15-20 people, whether they're using it for marketing, for customer, any type of customer interaction that includes sales, that includes answering the phone with an AI. And I don't mean support, I mean a sales phone. And you can set that up as a generalist within a day. Now, that's not going to be as robust as a full-on company needs it. And that's also where the partners come in. But essentially, it's going to be woven into every part of life. And you can look at it from 2 different ways. I prefer the second. So the first way is that all these, say, smarter systems are going to replace a lot of existing human labor. That's A. But B is that all the existing human labor, at least that commits to becoming these generalists and fluent, are going to basically massively grow or exponentially grow the output that they can do. So same amount of people over time producing a lot more. And that's also what the big bet on AI is on all the market, is that you can create with the same or potentially less, as we have population decline over time, people, continued economic growth. And ultimately, that's the same for the channel, even if it sounds very philosophical. You want to have, if you have a small team, keep that team, continue investing in their skill and their expertise and the culture, but maximize the output they can have without burning anyone out, right? So you're actually improving the kind of quality of work and quality of life while you're giving people superpowers.
That's a really good point. So today's superpower is going to be tomorrow's mainstream. In terms of business opportunity, what does that look like for VARs versus MSPs versus regional SIs?
Like most tech shifts, play to your strengths, right? So I would say when it comes to a VAR, their strength today, somewhat their knowledge of technology, but mostly it's relationship. It's the proximity and intimacy that they have with their customers. That can be that they really understand the industry, that they understand the region, right? Like operating out of some rural place in Germany is very different to the big city. So even that has merit when you're in that conversation. So for a VAR, it's about basically packaging up ready solutions. I'm simplifying here, but packaging up things that they know are going to be relevant with their partners that they can very easily get adopted. So it's about simplicity for the VARs, I would say, and playing to their existing strength of the relationship that they have and the knowledge and intimacy. For let's take an SI. For an SI, there's a great opportunity if you're talking about agents as an example, but also things like MCP, Model Context Protocol, then a lot of this is about connecting different systems or connecting agents, connecting different AI tools, let's say broadly, to one another. That's no different to what system integrators did with, much older, more unwieldy systems. In fact, it gets somewhat easier. There's kind of a tool sprawl today, so you need to have more range of expertise for a while, because just as you have this explosion of companies and tools, a lot of them, I would say more than half, are going to be wiped out. It's just the natural thing that happens, and then the strong ones survive there, and that's a good thing. So you have to have this range of expertise, but you can really double down on integrating that. So what it means is focus now not just on how AI is being integrated to existing systems like ERPs or CRMs or whatever you have potentially already implemented there, but also focus on how you are integrating one to another AI. I would say that broadly, and make sure that that's a skill that your people are extremely fluent in. Second piece there is not to overinvest in things that potentially have a limited validity. So because AI technology overall is moving so fast today, faster than when we set this 10 years ago, that technology is moving so fast, like really incredibly. Every week you wake up and there's like an entire kind of paradigm shift. One thing is to spot what could last, what are kind of some of the core principles. Now, if we come to the MSPs, in my opinion, the opportunity is kind of the biggest, but it also requires a lot of focus and skill and dedication, no different to what it is for them today. Because if you think of companies implementing AI, and I say this broadly, not to get into specifics of what type of AI for what type of outcome, then these systems need to be managed way better, more than traditional systems. Because if you looked at traditional systems, say programs, they have a defined output for a defined input, right? So you can say, these are the things we need to guard for, come in, make sure that the system's secure. If you're looking at MSSPs, make sure that the system's still performant and so forth. There's basically a range of standardized pieces there. If you're looking at AI systems, then these underlying models, they act more, you could get in trouble for saying that, but they act more like brains in that they drift, right? They change without someone actively changing them, right? So the more these systems are used, the more they naturally drift, is the word for it. So you actually have a great opportunity to make sure that they keep kind of being recentered to their actual purpose, or you let them deliberately drift into a direction where you want them. So more of a learning, but a deliberate learning. So that's a great opportunity and a very important and focused one. Another one is, you don't know. So if you take like a subscription or a typical consumption product, then you know when a user has a command for it, like clicks something, says something, does something, then you get a defined response. And that response, well, if it's subscription, it's just part of the fee. But if it's consumption, you know kind of pretty exact what it's going to cost you, right? If you're talking about, well, especially interactive multimodal systems in AI that you have now your broad employee base, so your customer's employee base as an MSP interacting with, then you and I could ask kind of the same question in just a slightly different way. So I might say, hey, I'm invited to a podcast this morning. I'm really excited. Just can you give me some general guidance? And you might say, I'm invited to a podcast this morning, just to keep that premise the same. I'm invited to a podcast this morning. I want to make sure that it's really structured. Can you help me out? We kind of probably want the same thing. We're going to get different answers, no question. But the more interesting piece is what's happening. So the inference, the model working, the brain working, if you will, could have vastly different load, vastly different consumption that it's causing in the system. Now, if you're paying for that, the compute, in this case, less so the storage, but you're paying for all of that, then you kind of want to have some level of predictability. If you ask, it costs you this much, if I cost that much, but you can't. So you actually need someone that is managing that overall kind of consumption and cost spending in a much more complex way that it was done. And now those are two very specialized things. But if you look back, an MSP has managed an existing system and made sure that it's basically still doing what it should be doing, still secure, still being well governed, depending on their focus. That's no different to what they do today. It just becomes even more relevant and important with AI. And then that's exactly the same thing. Many MSPs have cost optimization practices, especially if it comes to the cloud, right? Because you don't want to have runaway costs. Your ROI starts having an issue. But it's somewhat predictable. Now it becomes even less predictable, not unpredictable, but less, which makes that same function you've already performed for however long even more critical, more valuable as well. So just to give two examples. And so if you go from the VAR who plays to their existing strengths, who's potentially selling, let's call it simplified products or solutions today, should do the same with AI. Play to that strength. If you're an SI, ensure you have fluency across integration of legacy tools with new tools, but new tool to new tool, and that is moving very fast. So you need to basically accelerate your learning. And lastly, the MSPs, they really can basically develop specialized expertise on top of existing propositions that they have today.
So on that point, what value or what role does Ingram Micro play in this landscape? How does Ingram Micro support the partners?
This is extremely complex for everyone, including for us, right? And our job is to make this complexity a lot simpler for our partners. Now, some partners, usually more large, more specialized ones, they already have a focus. Our role is more about enhancing the skills that they, or not enhancing, completing the parts of the skill sets or use cases that they don't have. But many partners out there today, they're starting. So they want to understand where are they today? What do their customers want from them today and relative to this technology, let's say, and then where should they or shouldn't they focus? And on that basis, what do they need to do? So our role is to formally help them do this. And the way we do this is we help them essentially assess where they are. With a very robust assessment we built in concert with 15 or so top technology companies to make it really something well-rounded that when you come out of it, you understand how much do I understand about the business of AI, about services side, technology side, portfolio side, so basically the tech stack of it, and where's my opportunity also versus others. So understand where you are. On that basis, our job is then to kind of determine a bit of a roadmap of what you could or should be working on, and then simplifying that work. So that is taking you through basically highly structured and focused enablement programs, if you will, with a digital assistant, so it's more seamless for you. So the job for us and the role that we play is to simplify getting you from where you are today, first of all, helping you understand where you are today, to where you want but also need to be. So this want and need, I think there's an example I like to talk about. If you are, for example, like a security-focused MSSP, and part of the assessment would also be, what are your customers asking you for? Your customers likely today for AI are looking for productivity gains or efficiency, because that's usually the conversation for most businesses, or at least where it starts, right? Because your businesses, your customers, they're not in the business of security. They're in the business of having a secure business, but they're in the business of whatever that might be, manufacturing, retail, and so forth. And generally speaking, we always look at productivity or efficiency. So that's their need, and they're going to relate that to AI. Can't we use AI to be more productive, more efficient? But that is not your focus as a company. You're an MSSP. So if you know that, you kind of have three options. There's probably more, but three I can think of. So either you can say, we're going to wait. We're going to continue doing what we're doing, but we let them engage with whoever is their other partner that focuses on productivity, work there. And then once they start understanding that when they implement AI, governance, security becomes absolutely critical. It always is, but it becomes even more critical. And then we jump in, which means at the point that this becomes a relevant need for them and that it clicks. So that's option one. Option two is you could pivot or build another side unit and say, well, since all the hype, all the rage right now is AI for productivity, we're going to kind of go off on the side and build out a productivity focused practice with like a Microsoft or a Google, whatever that might be, and help them basically realize that. But that's getting into an entirely new, you could say, vertical or technology practice. Or what you could do, which is kind of the hardest but can also yield the most, is you can very early on, when that AI conversation is happening and it's about productivity, then make it very clear how relevant and important is security and governance from the ground up. That is very true, but what it will do, it will mean that this initial project that the customer is trying to do becomes a much bigger project. They will be not necessarily afraid or scared, but they will be a bit more hesitant because now they are exposed to a lot more risk, which they should be. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but there are kind of low barrier to entry, low risk exposures to AI that realize value very, very quickly. And then the company's kind of hooked, right? And it's like, once you know this superpower and you're using it, then you got to figure out how to be responsible with it to kind of use that a little bit. So you have these three options, and that is an example of our role as helping you understand that you have them and which ones those are, and then potentially how to go about them. In all that, it's our role to give you extremely focused use cases, not, how the astronaut is using AI on the space station. There are not that many around. Astronauts there are, but not that many space stations. So that's not, but it's very focused on the industry vertical and the business outcome that you're trying to do. So simplifying complexity, that's the role that we have. And because it's now woven into everything, it makes it nearly infinitely complex. And that's our job, and kind of cut through that hype, because it's hype, but I see that as a positive thing. It's not a dangerous hype, and make it very, very tangible, very easy in the broadest sense.
And relevant to the business.
Yes.
So the option one is actually a bit more reactive, wait and watch, whereas the option 2 and 3, they can really be proactive. And that's where we can help them get proactive and get ahead of the curve. And there's going to be clear profitability implications as well, the sooner you get on to that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the big things. I mean, in AI, it just accelerates basically the that trend that we've had for, let's just say, 10 years with traditionally the cloud, where you had to, as a partner in the channel, figure out how you properly work with true subscription models. I don't mean those kind of renewable licenses, but truly subscription models and consumption models. And you needed to adjust your business as well, determine if so and how much services, which is truly valuable to your partners and to your own business, you're going to build around which topics. Are there more business services like consulting, adoption, and so forth? Are there much more technical, like you're doing an infrastructure analysis, you're refactoring existing applications, you're integrating them, whatever that might be. So in that broad sense, when the partners are focusing on this in the past, now a lot of that basically underlying current of more consumption and more subscription becomes so relevant in every part of the AI business that you really have to think about how you transform if you haven't already transformed. So in some way, partners that have jumped on that transformation that the cloud technology drove, or the business models that cloud technology propagated, they have a bit of an edge because they don't need to go through that big transformation again of their underlying kind of business model and familiarity with it. They can focus much more on the vertical and the tech, if you will, than the business model transformation, which then also, of course, means they're more profitable because they can kind of invest a bit more forward leaning.
We have this program, EnableAI. Would you like to tell us more about it?
The way we think about it as Ingram Micro is kind of in two ways. We have what we call Xvantage Assist AI, and we have what we call Xvantage Enable AI. So Assist AI are all the great capabilities that our platform team built into Xvantage. So when our customers work with us using the platform, they get more dynamic pricing, they get really relevant recommendations and insight, and many things like that that utilize the AI models that the team has built. So that's the assist, right? That's helping our partners do the work, the engagement they have with us in easier, better, and unheard of ways, right? It really massively improves that. So that's one side. And that is very unique, I would say. On the enable side, we have kind of one very simple mission, at least on paper it's simple, is to enable our partners to confidently sell, deliver, and service AI solutions at scale. That's the mission of the program. And so the way the program is structured, and I, more than alluded to it already, is that it starts with an engagement and a digital assessment, fairly robust one that we do as a guided assessment, or you can do it self-service to help you understand where you are. That's the first piece. Then secondly, follows an orientation around where you should potentially be going. As you do this, we also built up a very large library of focused and standardized use cases. And then lastly, we have what we call trails or growth tracks that help you build a practice. So let me jump back to the middle of this, which are the use cases. We decided very deliberately, and we spent a lot of time initially to think through what are the key, how does this conversation start? What's the question that the end customer is asking the partner, and how do we make this easy? And everybody in tech has always talked about start with business outcomes. Like that's not anything new, and nobody should ever sell that as original. But how do you really focus, simplify, and hone in? So when we were engaging with a lot of our tech suppliers, they had a lot of very specific business outcomes that had 10, 12, 20 business outcomes. And what we said is, if we want to simplify it, there are really three kind of business outcomes, or three outcomes rather than business outcomes, that AI, other things as well, could drive. Either you're trying to be more productive, so do more with less, do more faster, any kind of permutation of productivity and efficiency. That's your primary goal, and you're trying to achieve that with, let's say, technology in this case. So it's an outcome, it's a productivity-focused outcome conversation. You start there. Or it's customer experience, and customer is interchangeable. That could be an employee as well. So experience. And that's the primary outcome you want to achieve. You want to give a better, more robust, more exciting, whatever it might mean, experience first. And third, security, right? You want to use technology to be more secure, have better governance, everything that is in this space. So really just three types of business outcomes. And every conversation can kind of line up itself, and then the corresponding technology behind that. Because if you take the example, very kind of prominent example that's been used a lot, but the chatbot, let's say the support bot, I'll just use it because everybody knows how that works in the context of AI. So say I have two companies. The first company says, hey, I want to implement a smart chatbot using AI because I'm getting so much interaction from my customers for all the right reasons, but I can't hire more people, so I need to handle a lot more with the same or less. So ultimately, it's a productivity conversation, right? So start there. Okay, which means if I know that that's the case, I know how to structure my sales flow and everything. It also means it's fairly straightforward for me as a partner, and we help with that, to build a business case, because productivity is simple, right? How much are you saving? That's easily quantifiable. Second company says, hey, I want a smart chatbot because I want to create this great omni-channel experience. I basically, if my customer comes in over the web or on the phone, it doesn't matter. It should always feel like one, be picked up. So I want to have a great experience. Now, that is going to be a lot harder business case, because how do you quantify experience?
Yes, it's intangible.
It's very intangible. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing is both those might actually end up being the exact same technology solution that the partner is implementing. But the way the conversation starts at a human level, at a company, at an intimacy level, is very different, and it means a different part of the sales flow. So kind of simplifying what otherwise could be very complex and just a random outcome conversation is part of what we do in the program. So we have 3 focused outcomes, and we are focusing today on, I'll say, 4.5 industry verticals, because the 5th one we're still building out. So we focus on retail, manufacturing, and we include construction in that, healthcare and finance, and then the 5th one is PubSec that we're still building out. Because when we looked across our partner base globally, and this very much applies to the UK as well, then significantly more than 80% of our end customer base, so our customers' customers, fall into those industries. Mm-hmm. So my example from earlier, why talk about a space station when you can talk about those things that matter? So now think of that as a matrix. I'm talking to a customer in manufacturing that started the conversation with productivity. Yes, they'll also achieve a better experience, but started there. Where do I start? Or I'm talking to someone in healthcare who is now really worried about client safety and the governance around that data and how to do that with AI. Every use case, no matter the technology behind it, has the exact same format. So if you're a partner that works across multiple vendors, which many of our partners do, or you just want to explore others, you don't now need to kind of get well versed in the language and structure of how they do their enablement content, which we've seen a lot of others do. But you can literally open up 3 and you know exactly where to find what information. And it's also limited to the information that's relevant for you to start that engagement in a meaningful way. So that's the second piece of kind of middle, right? So you start with the assessment, then the middle, you have this workshop plus exploration phase. And then for some partners, that's enough today. We take that VAR example. There's going to be exceptions to this, but I'm making a broad generalization, always dangerous. Then you are probably looking to explore the right type of use cases that you can kind of package up and do, but not necessarily repeatedly in the way that you build a practice. So, but for the ones that want to build a practice, or where it makes sense, because 60-70% of their customers are in retail. If you're in retail, you're going to have the same problems, just how the world works. And let's say you're focused on Google, just as an example, you're focused on IBM. Then we have custom enablement paths that allow you to build that repeatable muscle. So at the end of it, whether that includes services capabilities, it's purely technical, purely commercial, to repeatedly deliver this solution to this type of customer to achieve this type of outcome in your own way. And that's in the end the program and the journey you can go through. So you do have the ability, after you understand where you are, to explore and do things. Tactically is not the right word, but reactive, you said before, and I think that's a good word, is, I have a request out of my retail customer that's about productivity. What could I do here? Or to say, I've already committed. I want to be the best at customer experience in financial solutions, because we all love that. And I'm going to double down and build all my practices around that. And then you can do that with our local teams.
If a partner has embarked on this journey, they've created this practice, or they've created this package with us, is it something then they can take to more customers and actually scale?
Yeah. So, the reality is if some of those things are project based, right? So you're always going to have
bespoke element.
Yeah, so 10, 20%, sometimes 30% that are going to be different for every customer, but you want that 80%
exactly.
Copy paste is a bit of a stretch, but repeatability and scalability, like you put. And that's how they're built. So it's that repeatable muscle when you're building a practice using our growth tracks, but also on the use cases, the way they're formulated is basically in their kind of foundational elements. So the stuff that the house always needs from you. And then on top of it, you do the furnishings and everything else and your own twist as well. Like a technical example might be, if we go back to that chatbot, and that's the use case. And for now, doesn't matter whether it's about productivity or experience. So let's ignore that. As a partner, you can decide whether you're going to pick something off the shelf. And if we just stay in the Microsoft realm, there's a Copilot product for that. And then if you're going to build something, for example, using Copilot Studio, but even if you're going to build something, you can determine to what level. Like, am I going to take mostly off-the-shelf microservices, put them together, add my own service implementation, let's say, on top of it, package that up and do that repeatedly? Or am I going to even build some of my own custom code inside of this, add my own intellectual property into this, and truly make this my own? So there's a piece that nobody can pick off any shelf, even a microservices shelf, and do that. And so you have this kind of range of going from copy pasting something very simple to creating something in the same way that you're then scaling. I would say that the latter part of what I spoke about, and I think that's fairly obvious, is always the place where we are a lot more involved with our partners. We are along for the journeys. Many times we're actually asked to be involved directly with the end customer, and something that we tend to do quite a bit. But on the earlier side of that spectrum, that's really the goal, to make things scalable. We spoke a little bit about the trend earlier, and I said 75% of knowledge workers are using AI. That includes the mid-market and the long-tail SMB. That is not the same statistic if you look at what percentage of these markets, of these companies versus individuals, are adopting AI. So most of these people that are using it are bringing their own. It has a pro and a con. It's a massive con when it comes to governance, to security, and many things like that. But I'm kind of a techno-optimist. So the way I look at this is like, this is the best opportunity for us as the channel. And of course, the obvious reason would be we can tell them about all the dangers and so forth. But no, I think it's just more simple than that. Is we're saying these companies don't know how to use it, and even if we sell it, it won't be adopted. Well, if 3/4 of their people are using this tech on the daily, they clearly get value. Otherwise, you don't. Nobody's forcing you, right? So you do it. You're taking a risk as an employee, so you definitely see value in it, and you're also now familiar with it. So once you kind of cross that chasm and get in there as a partner and say, like, actually, most of your people already use this tech. Once it's in there, it's going to be adopted much more quickly than we actually, and the industry is kind of saying that we're thinking. So that's kind of my take on this, and I think how a lot of that's moving. So you want to be quick, and maybe as a partner you start out with that scalable, more off-the-shelf solution. I'm not a fan of bundles, but let's say off-the-shelf. And then you get into something more bespoke that you've had a hand in building, configuring, conceiving, that you then do repeatedly.
Okay, so speed to market and quicker adoption based on where we already are with the 75%. However, I think if there is a bit more structure, rigor, and governance behind it, that's what we want to see, really.
Yes, that's what scales in the end, right? If you look 2 years ago, there was a lot of experimentation, and even still today, a lot of the narrative is there's experimentation in the enterprise. Are they really seeing the ROI? I don't agree with that. I think many of them are, and their employees are. It's also a question of how big the solution, the implementation was, how much did you spend, and then how long is it going to take to see the ROI. And a good example of this is what we spoke about earlier, is if it's a productivity-based ROI, you probably can see it very quickly. Like if you're adopting something that optimizes your work, and you save, like the first day you use it, you save an hour. You've already saved the $20 that it probably cost you for that month. So that's easy ROI. Everybody can do it. That's one reason that the adoption is going up there. If we're implementing a heavier solution for, let's say, around patient care, although there's a productivity aspect, or around retail experiences or things like that, you're going to see, like with any project, a delayed realization of that ROI. So always when you have those dynamics at play, you want to make sure that you have something that you can quickly offer, but that's still relevant. So that's not just following some hype. That's basically getting people to start using the technology, start seeing some of these outcomes we spoke about that they want. And then very quickly, you want to basically understand, where do I need to build scalability? If I am going to focus more on things that are likely going to always be there off the shelf, and potentially more and more offerings around it, then you can probably play to your existing strengths. You just have to go out, explore as a partner, and so do we as Ingram. If you're adding your own flavor to it, services, technology consulting, integration, managed service, then it means early on figuring out in which scalable, repeatable skills you want to invest with your existing people. If there's any underlying technology you yourself need for that, which isn't a major thing today, that might change. And also what's potentially just a fad, so you don't want to overinvest. It's part of the role of the ongoing conversation that we have and should have always in the channel is separating out that reality from that hype. And by the way, that's not a reflection on this whole conversation of it as being a bubble, but just generally, is it a hype conversation or not? There are, I would say, more than 2/3 of the conversation are very real, immediately applicable, and drive that. But that other third that overshadows it a little bit. And so move fast and figure out very quickly where you want to scale. That doesn't mean you have to quadruple your business, but what's the thing I want to be known for, and where do I want to make my money over time? That's probably the place where you want to scale.
Eric, thank you so much. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to touch upon?
Yeah, I think how to get started. So I would say for all our partners out there in the UK, EnableAI is live today. It's been live for a little bit. We haven't gone massively public with it yet here, but the teams are ready. They're quite excited about it. And so if you want to get started, come to Xvantage, talk to your team, talk to the people that you're working with every day, and start with an assessment just to kind of see where you stand and explore those use cases. Have that conversation with us and find your own way quickly. And like I said, I'd say much earlier on, odds are that this way is a way you're already on. Like, it is use your existing strength, your existing focus. It's not the pivot conversation that also probably will take too long. So don't fall victim to saying everything is hype. Focus on things that are scalable. Focus on the intimacy and knowledge you have of your partner, your end customer, and your their industry that they're in. And double down. I would say, I mentioned it as a superpower at the start. If you could have it, you probably shouldn't ignore it and hate on it, right? Because if you do, you might not be around forever.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. A great conversation, very, very insightful. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.